Hello everyone, this is our chapter number 1, the last lesson of class 12. Let's talk about the author. Alphonse Daudet, who was born in 1840 and he died in 1897. He was a French novelist and he has also written some short story. So let's start the lesson. Basically, it's about the war. This lesson is about the war. जब फ्रांस एंड प्रूशिया के बीच में लड़ाई हो रही थी, वॉर थी, एंड फ्रांस डिफीटेड फ्रांस वाज डिफीटेड बाय प्रूशिया, तो फ्रांस हार गई थी. सो उसके बेस पे एक स्टोरी है, छोटी सी, वेरी इंटरेस्टिंग स्टोरी. लेट्स स्टार्ट. I started for school very late that morning and was in great dread of scolding, especially because M. Hamel had said that he would question us on participles. Participles here, ये French language में participle बोला जाता है इसे, and which means the action verbs, verb and articles. तो M. Hamel ने बोला था कि आप नेक्स्ट डे मॉर्निंग आप पार्टिसिपल्स का टेस्ट है और आप लर्न करके आएंगे. एंड आई डिड नॉट नो द वर्ड फर्स्ट वर्ड अबाउट देम, लेकिन मुझे कुछ भी पार्टिसिपल्स के बारे में पता नहीं था. द नरेटर ऑफ द स्टोरी is a young school going boy. His name was France. That morning he was scared as he was late for the school. Also, as their teacher M. Hamel has announced the previous day that he would test them on the topic of participles. And Franz did not know anything at all. He was more scared of being scolded. For a moment, I thought of running away and spending the day out of the door. It was so warm, so bright, the birds were chirping at the edge of the woods, and in the open field back of the sawmill, the Prussian soldiers were drilling. Here, sawmill means a factory for cutting woods, जहाँ पे wood को cut किया जाता है, and drilling means exercising. जो soldier थे, Prussian soldiers थे, वो exercise कर रहे थे. France had another option in his mind to miss the school and enjoy the day out in the warm and bright weather. He described the scene. There were birds chirping on the trees and the noise of the Persian soldier during the drill behind the sawmill could not be heard. फ्रांस स्कूल की तरफ जा रहा था और उसके सर ने उसको पार्टिसिपल्स लर्न करने के लिए बोले थे, लेकिन उसको पार्टिसिपल का कुछ भी पता नहीं था. और रास्ते में उसका माइंड में ऑप्शन आया कि लेट्स स्किप द स्कूल. लेकिन और सीन बहुत ही अच्छा था. बर्ड्स चहचहा रही थी ट्रीज के ऊपर और जो नॉइज थी वो पर्शियन सोल्जर्स की जो मॉर्निंग में एक्सरसाइज हो रही थी, तो ये मौसम उसे बहुत अच्छा लग रहा था. It was all much more tempting than the rule of participle, but I had the strength to resist and hurried off to school. The scene outside was more attractive than the school, but France controlled the temptation and chose to attend the school. Scene बहुत अच्छा था, फ्रांस ने कंट्रोल करा और स्कूल की तरफ वापस जाने लगा. Here tempting means attracting and resist means to stay away. When I passed the town hall, there was a crowd in front of the bulletin board. For the last 2 years, all our bad news had come from there. The lost battles, the draft, the order of commanding officer. And I thought to myself, without stopping, what can be the matter now? Bulletin board is a notice board for putting up the latest news and communication. एक स्कूल में notice board लगा होता है, bulletin board भी बोला जाता था. As Franz walked past the town hall, he noticed a huge crowd at the notice board. The war with Persia had begun 2.5 years ago, and since then, all the bad news like losing the war, occupation of Alsace and Lorraine by the enemy, that is Persia extra, had been communicated to the people through this bulletin board. Franz kept on walking towards the school and thought in his mind that what the news could have been put up at the board now. फ्रांस टाउन हॉल की तरफ जा रहा था. उसने देखा नोटिस बोर्ड की तरफ काफी क्राउड है और 2.5 साल से वॉर चल रही थी पुष्या और फ्रांस के बीच में। उसको काफी बैड न्यूज बुलेटिन बोर्ड पे लगती थी, और अब उसको समझ में नहीं आ रहा था कि इतनी ह्यूज क्राउड है बुलेटिन बोर्ड के पास, तो ऐसी अब क्या न्यूज लग गई है, इतनी बुरी न्यूज तो हम सुन ही रहे थे। Then, as I hurried as fast I could go, the blacksmith, the watcher who was there, with his apprentice, reading the bulletin, called after me, "Don't go so fast, Buck. You will get to your school in plenty of time." I thought he was making fun of me and reached M. Hammel's little garden all out of the breath. As he walked hurriedly towards the school, the blacksmith who was reading the newspaper and had come along with the trainee called out the France from behind and said he need not go in such a hurry as he has plenty of time to reach the school. वहां लोग बैठे थे, न्यूज़पेपर ब्लैक्समिथ पढ़ रहा था, एंड उसने बोला कि फ्रांस तुम इतना हर्डली क्यों भागते हुए स्कूल जा रहे हो, अभी तुम्हारे पास बहुत टाइम है स्कूल जाने के लिए। Apprentice here means the trainee. Franz thought that the blacksmith was making fun of him, as he was already late for the school. When Franz reached the garden outside the school, he was out of breath and he walked very fast. तो उसे लगा ये तो मेरा मजाक उड़ा रहे हैं, मैं ऑलरेडी स्कूल के लिए लेट हो रहा हूँ। तो उसने कहा कि भाई अब मुझे थोड़ा सा जल्दी भागना पड़ेगा स्कूल की तरफ। Usually when the school began, there was a great bustle which could be heard out in the street, the opening and closing of desks, lesson repeated in unison, very loud, with our hands over our ears to understand better, and the teacher's great ruler rapping on the table. Here, a great bustle means a lot of noise created by many people. And the second one, in unison, means at the same time. Rapping means striking. So Franz described the usual scene at the school in the morning, a lot of noise created by the moving of desks, children repeating their lessons and teachers striking the tables with the ruler could be heard. एवरी डे क्या होता था, जब वो स्कूल पहुंचता था तो वहां पे काफी नॉइज मिलती थी, शोर मिलता था, मूव करने का, डेस्क बच्चे मूव करते थे, बेंचेस अपने, और जो बच्चे होते थे वो अपने लेसन्स रिपीट कर रहे होते थे, और टीचर्स जो होती थी टेबल पर टैप करके अपने रूलर से उनको चुप करा रही होती थी। तो ये सारी नॉइजेस वो डेली सुनता था। बट नाउ इट वाज सो स्टिल, आई हैड काउंटेड on the commotion to get my desk without being seen. But of course, that day everything had to be as quiet as Sunday morning. Here, counted on means depended upon, commotion means noise and confusion. So, that day was unusual as there was no such sound coming out of the school, and it seemed that the school was closed as it was to be on Sunday morning. Franz had planned that he would take cover under the commotion and reach the class without being noticed, but that did not seem possible. तो सब कुछ अनयूजुअल था, जो रोज होता था वो अब नहीं था। बिल्कुल पिन ऑफ साइलेंस थी, हर जगह शांति थी। तो उसको बहुत अजीब सा लग रहा था, ऐसा तो सिर्फ संडे मॉर्निंग ही हुआ करता था। और फ्रांस ने प्लान करा कि मैं चलो देखता हूँ, नोटिस करता हूँ कि भी कहीं क्लास में क्या हो रहा है, इतनी पिन ऑफ साइलेंस क्यों है चारों तरफ। Through the window, I saw my classmates already in their places, and M. Hamel walking up and down with his terrible iron ruler under his arm. तो उसने विंडो से झांका और उसने देखा कि मेरे उसके जो क्लासमेट्स थे वो चुपचाप अपनी सीट्स पे बैठे हुए थे, और जो टीचर था एम हेमल वो इधर से उधर घूम रहा था अपनी आयरन की रॉड लेकर अपने आर्म्स के नीचे दबा के। I had to open the door and go in the before everybody. You can imagine how I blushed and how frightened I was. Blush means face turned red in color due to shame. जब आप शर्माते हो तो you blush. Here, Franz was ashamed of being late and feared a scolding as he had to enter the school classroom in front of everyone. तो फ्रांस बहुत डरा हुआ था, उसे शर्म भी आ रही थी कि वो लेट हो चुका था और उसे डर था कि कहीं अब इसकी डांट पड़ेगी और पिटाई होगी क्लासरूम में सबके सामने। But nothing happened. M. Hamel saw me and said very kindly, "Go to your place quickly, little Franz. We were beginning without you." Here, Franz found it very strange, as M. Hamel did not say anything. On the contrary, he politely asked him to get to his seat, as the class was about to begin without him. तो यहाँ फ्रांस को और ज़्यादा सरप्राइज हुआ कि मैं लेट भी आया और मुझे कुछ याद भी नहीं है। और एम हेमल ने आज फर्स्ट टाइम मुझे ऐसा लग रहा है बहुत प्यार से बात करी और कहा कि चुपचाप अपनी जाके सीट पे बैठ जाओ, हम लेसन स्टार्ट करने वाले हैं। I jumped over the bench and sat down at my desk. Not till then, when I had got a little over my fright, did I see that our teacher had on his beautiful green coat, his frilled shirt, and the little black silk cap, all embroidered, that he never wore except on inspection and prize day. Franz hurried to his seat. Franz फटाफट अपनी सीट पे बैठ गया. After some time, when he overcame the scare and became comfortable, he noticed that their teacher had worn his best embroidery that day. The teacher normally wore it on the occasion like inspection and prize distribution day. Franz wondered if that day was a normal day, then what could be the reason for M. Himmel to wear his special dress? फ्रांस बहुत सरप्राइज था जब वो कंफर्ट में आ गया, उसने कंफर्टेबली बैठ गया और उसका डर थोड़ा सा कम हो गया, तो उसने नोटिस किया आज एम ने कुछ स्पेशल ड्रेस पहनी है जो एक ओकेजन पे पहना करते थे जब इंस्पेक्शन होती थी या प्राइज डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन डे होता था, तो उसमें ये ड्रेस वो पहनते थे। तो आज कैसे इन्होंने वेल ड्रेस पहनी हुई है। बिसाइड द स्कूल, beside the whole school seemed so strange and solemn. But the thing that surprised me most was to see on the back benches that were always empty. The village people sitting quietly like ourselves, old Hauser with his three corned hat, the former mayor and the former postmaster, and several other besides. Here Solomon means serious. France felt that the atmosphere in the school was unusual and serious. उसने कहा आज का तो एटमॉस्फेयर बहुत ही अनयूजुअल है और बहुत सरप्राइज है, सीरियस है हर कोई. To add to this, the last benches of the classroom was occupied by the senior villagemen. जो last bench था वहाँ पे senior villagemen बैठे थे. औजर बैठा था जो अपनी थ्री कॉर्नर हैट पहन के बैठा था, एक रिटायर्ड मेयर था, पोस्ट मास्टर थे, ऐसे काफी लोग बैठे हुए थे. Everybody looked sad, and Hauser had brought an old primer, thumbed at the edges, and he held it open on his knees with his great spectacle lying across the pages. Primer here means basic reader of any language, and thumb means torn and damaged. They all looked sad. Hauser had brought his reader, which was old and torn. बुक लेकर आया हुआ था और पेपर था उसके हाथ में और वो काफी पुराना और फटा हुआ था. He had opened it, उसने खोला, अपनी नीज के ऊपर रखा और अपने चश्मे पहन लिए. While I was wondering about it all, M. Hamill mounted his chair and in the same grave and gentle tone which he had used to me, said, "My children, this is the last lesson I shall give you. The order has come from Berlin to teach only German in the school of Alex and Lauren. The new masters comes tomorrow. This is your last French lesson. I want you to be very attentive." Here, grave means serious. Now, Franz was confused and could not figure out what was happening that day. बहुत confused था, उसे समझ में नहीं आ रहा था क्या हो रहा है उस दिन. Just then, M. Hamel told them that it was the last lesson in French as the Prussian in Berlin had ordered the French language would no longer be taught in the school of Alex and Lorraine, and the German language be taught instead. The German teacher would arrive the next day, and this was the last lesson in French he wanted them to pay attention. उन्होंने बताया है महमल ने कि आज हमारा लास्ट लेसन है फ्रेंच का और बर्लिन से ऑर्डर आया है आफ्टर द वॉर क्योंकि फ्रांस हार गया था तो उन्होंने ऑर्डर दिया था कि अब स्कूलों में फ्रेंच लैंग्वेज नहीं पढ़ाई जाएगी और सिर्फ अब जर्मन लैंग्वेज ही स्कूल में पढ़ाई जाएगी तो उन्होंने बोला कि ये मेरा लास्ट लेसन है फ्रेंच का तो आप सब अटेंशन पे करें ध्यान से सुने इस लेसन को What a thunderclap these words were to me. Oh, the ranges. That was what they had put up to the town hall. Thunderclap means here used in comparison to refer to something startling or unexpected. जो news आपको जैसे कहते हैं ना बिजली गिर गई unexpected आपको कोई news मिलती है. And wrenches here means it refers to an unfortunate happening. अनहोनी जिसे बोलते हैं. Now here Franz was shocked to know that he could not learn French any longer and now he knew the latest news that had been put up at the bulletin board of the town hall. अब उसको थोड़ा रियलाइज हुआ कि बुलेटिन बोर्ड पे क्यों इतनी ज्यादा क्राउड थी कि यही न्यूज लगी हुई थी वहां पर कि अब फ्रेंच लैंग्वेज नहीं पढ़ाई जाएगी उसकी जगह जर्मन लैंग्वेज पढ़ाई जाएगी. My last lesson. Why? I hardly knew how to write. I should never learn anymore. I must stop there. Then, oh, how sorry I was for not learning my lessons, for seeking bird's egg or going sliding on the Saar. Here, Saar means a river which passes through France. River के बारे में बात हो रही है यहाँ पर. Now here, France regretted for not being serious towards the study and wasting his time in hunting bird's egg and playing in the Saar river. यहाँ उसको रियलाइज हुआ कि मैंने फ्रेंच लैंग्वेज के बारे में कभी कुछ पढ़ा ही नहीं इंटरेस्ट ही नहीं लिया मैंने अपना सारा टाइम स्टडीज की जगह बर्ड्स एग के साथ खेलने में या रिवर में लगा दिया खेलने में My books that seemed such a nuisance a while ago, so heavy to carry my grammar and my history of the saints, were old friends now I could not give up. Here nuisance means problem and burden and couldn't give up means cannot clear. Till now, Franz considered his book to be an unwanted burden, but suddenly he starts considering them to be the best friend whom he could never leave. The writer wants to show the change in Franz's attitude towards the study after hearing the news that he could not learn French any longer. तो अभी तक जो फ्रांस को अपनी बुक्स बर्डन लगती थी अब उसको उससे प्यार हो गया उसको अपनी वो फ्रेंड्स लगने लग गए और वो उन्हें छोड़ना नहीं चाहता था बुक्स को तो यहाँ पे राइटर ने थोड़ा सा चेंज बताया कि फ्रांस का एटीट्यूड चेंज हुआ था टुवर्ड्स स्टडी क्योंकि अब उसने सुन लिया था कि फ्रेंच लैंग्वेज अब आगे से नहीं पढ़ाई जाएगी तो एकदम सडनली उसका फ्रेंच के तरफ प्यार जागा था कि काश मैं फ्रेंच लैंग्वेज पढ़ लेता And M. Himmel too the idea that he was going away that I should never see him again made me forget all his ruler and how cranky he was. Here, cranky means strange, short tempered. The news that their teacher M. Himmel was leaving also had a similar impact on him. Franz did not want him to go away. He no longer thought the teacher to be short tempered and strict. यहाँ एफएल को जाना था क्योंकि फ्रेंच लैंग्वेज नहीं पढ़ाई जानी थी और फ्रेंच के टीचर थे लेकिन फ्रांस नहीं चाहता था कि वो चाहे वो डांटते थे गुस्सा करते थे लेकिन वो अपने टीचर को छोड़ना नहीं चाहता था Poor man, it was in honor of this lesson that he had put on his fine Sunday clothes. And now I understood why the old man of the village was sitting there in the back of the room. Here, Sunday clothes means the best dress that a person has. सबसे अच्छी ड्रेस जो लोगों के पास होती थी वो अपने स्पेशल डे पे पहनते थे. Now France knew that M. Hamel was wearing his best dress in honor to of this last lesson. Honor करना चाहते थे अपने last lesson को. उन्होंने अपनी नई dress, अपनी Sunday dress पहनी थी. He also realized that the village man had come to pay respect and thank M. Hamel for his service of 40 years in that school. और उसे रियलाइज हुआ कि ये जितने बड़े लोग बैठे हैं विलेजर्स, वो एक रिस्पेक्ट शो करने आए थे, उनको एक थैंक यू बोलने आए थे एम हेमल को कि उन्होंने अपनी सर्विसेज दी, फ्रेंच पढ़ाई, उन्होंने 40 इयर्स स्कूल में रहकर. इट वॉज बिकॉज दे वर सॉरी टू that they had gone to school more. It was their way of thanking our master for his 40 years of faithful service and of showing their respect for the country that was there no more. Now, here the village men had come to this class as they were also repenting for not have studied well in their childhood. उन्हें बहुत regret हो रहा था कि अपने बचपन में वो अच्छे से नहीं पढ़े थे. They had come to thank their teacher for his 40 years of service as a teacher of France. और साथ ही वो थैंक यू बोलना चाहते थे अपने टीचर को, फ्रेंच टीचर को, जो 40 साल से वहां पढ़ा रहे थे. Also, they wanted to show respect to their country and were sad as the mother tongue French would no longer be taught to them. और थोड़ा उदास भी थे, रिस्पेक्ट तो दे ही रहे थे पर उदास भी थे कि आज से अब उनकी कल से मदर टंग नहीं पढ़ाई जाएगी फ्रेंच, क्योंकि फ्रांस हार चुका था. While I was thinking of all this, I heard my name called. The teacher called out to France as he turned to recite the topic of participle. तो टीचर ने बुलाया उसे और कहा भी आप participles बोलो. It was my turn to decide what would I have not given to able to say that dreadful rule for the participle or throw, very loud and clear and without one mistake. Here dreadful means frightening. As the news has impacted France, news मिली क्या impact पड़ा फ्रांस के ऊपर. He was eager to study and so he was desperate to show his eagerness. अब वो पढ़ना चाहता था, इंटरेस्ट ले रहा था फ्रेंच लैंग्वेज में. ही वांटेड टू एबल टू डिसाइड द टॉपिक इन वन गो. वो चाहता था कि एक ही बार में वो सारा टॉपिक क्लियर कर दे और विदाउट एनी मिस्टेक, एंड प्लीज हिज टीचर, और टीचर को अपने खुश कर दे. His desperation is reflected in the willingness to give away all that he had returned for reciting the lesson well. But I got mixed upon the first word and stood there, holding on to my desk, my heart beating, and not daring to look up. लेकिन क्या हुआ? Mixed up here means confused. He was confused. As France did not know the lesson, फ्रांस को लेसन नहीं पता था. He got confused and stood quietly. चुपचाप खड़ा रहा confusion में. His heart was beating fast and he was ashamed of himself and did not have the courage to face his teacher. बहुत शर्म आ रही थी उसको, फेस नहीं कर पा रहा था अपने टीचर को क्योंकि उसे लेसन नहीं बोल पा रहा था. चाहता तो था लेकिन वो नहीं कह पाया क्योंकि उसे लेसन के बारे में कुछ नहीं पता था. I heard M. Hamel say to me, I won't scold you, little France. You must feel bad enough. See how it is. Every day we have to say to ourselves, bah, I have plenty of time. I will learn it tomorrow. And now you see where we have come out. Where we have come out means the result. M. Hamel said to Franz that he would not scold him, as now he had realized his mistake. Every day, Franz told himself that he would study to the next day, and now the opportunity to study had ended and he knew nothing. तो जब एम हेमल उसको बोलते थे पढ़ने के लिए तो वो नहीं पढ़ता था, लेकिन अब उसे रियलाइज हो रहा था अपनी मिस्टेक कि जब वो रोज बोलते थे कि पढ़ो तो वो बोलता था कल पढ़ूंगा, वो कल कभी आया ही नहीं. और आज जब उसे रिसाइट करने के लिए पार्टिसिपल दिए तो उसको कुछ पता ही नहीं था. That's the great trouble with Alice. She puts off learning till tomorrow. Now those fellows out there will have to write to say to you, how is it? You pretend to be a Frenchman, and yet you can neither speak nor write your own language. But you are not the worst. Poor little France, we have all a great deal to reproach ourselves with. Pretend means show, to reproach means blame. किसी को blame करना. All right. Now here M. Hamel said that all the people of Alex were to be blamed. सब लोगों को blame किया जाता है. As no one was serious towards learning, क्योंकि कोई भी पढ़ना नहीं चाहता था, कोई serious नहीं था French language पढ़ने में. He tells the class that the enemy here means Prussians, जिनसे लड़ाई हुई थी उनकी, would laugh at them and say that they only show to the Frenchmen as they can neither speak nor write their own language. He say that the France should not feel guilty as everyone is at their fault. तो यहाँ उन्होंने बोला कि पुरुषन जो होंगे वो हंसेंगे हम लोगों के ऊपर कि हम तो अपनी ही लैंग्वेज मातृभाषा नहीं बोल सकते और इसमें फ्रांस की को गिल्ट नहीं लेना चाहिए क्योंकि सभी का फॉल्ट है इसमें नॉट इवन फ्रांस सभी का फॉल्ट है क्योंकि नो वन वाज इंटरेस्टेड टू लर्न द फ्रेंच लैंग्वेज योर पेरेंट्स were not anxious enough to have you learn. They preferred to put you to work on a farm or at mills so as to have a little more money, and I have been blamed also. Have I often sent you to the water my flowers instead of learning your lessons? And when I wanted to go fishing, did I not just give you a holiday? Now here M. Hamel says to France that the France parents were not interested in getting them educated. वो France को पढ़ाने में interested नहीं थे उसके parents. They wanted him to work at a farm or mill to earn some money. वो चाहते थे कि वो किसी farm या mill में काम करे और पैसा कमाए. He says that as a teacher, he was also not interested in teaching them. कि मैं भी टीचर था लेकिन मैं भी इतना इंटरेस्ट नहीं लिया तुम लोगों को पढ़ाने के लिए जब मुझे पानी देना होता था प्लांट्स में तो मैं तुम्हें भेजता था कि जाओ गो एंड वाटर माय प्लांट्स समटाइम्स ही वुड डिक्लेयर हॉलीडे एंड गो फॉर फिशिंग जब वो फिशिंग जाता था तो हॉलीडे कर देता था बच्चों की देन फ्रॉम वन थिंग टू अनदर M. Hamel went on to talk to the French language, saying that it was the most beautiful language in the world, the clearest, the most logical, that we must guard it among us and never forget it. Because when a people are enslaved, as long as they hold fast to their language, it is as if they had the key of their prison. Now, what does it mean? This is the map. You can see on the screen. France का map है. And let's continue with the chapter. Yes. Now here M. Hamel praises the mother tongue. French language as being the most beautiful, clearest and most logical language in the world. वो कहते हैं कि अपनी मदर टंग के बारे में कि बहुत ही सुंदर, क्लियर और लॉजिकल लैंग्वेज है जो हमने नहीं पढ़ी, इंटरेस्टेड नहीं थे. He tells the class to guard their language as it only way to free oneself from the prison of slavery. अगर वो slave नहीं बन के रहना चाहते प्रूशियन के अंदर में तो उन्हें अपनी लैंग्वेज सीखनी चाहिए and they should get educated. If a person know his mother tongue well, no one can enslave him. कि अगर आपको अपनी मदर टंग पता है बातचीत कर सकते हो लिख सकते हो बोल सकते हो तो कोई भी आपको स्लेव बना नहीं सकता. Knowing the mother tongue well as a language is a tool to fight domination. Then he opened a grammar and read us our lesson. I was amazed to see how well I understood it. All he said seemed to so easy, I think too, that I had never listened so carefully, and he had never explained everything with so much patience. It seems almost as if the poor man wanted to give us all he knew before going away, and to put it all into our heads at one stroke. At one stroke here means at once in one go. एक ही बारी में सब कुछ पढ़ा देना. Here, the teacher took a lesson in grammar. Grammar में lesson लिया. That day, France was surprised that he understood the lesson with ease. He felt that he had been attentive, and that M. Hamel also explained the lesson with lot of patience. France felt that the teacher wanted to give them all the knowledge he had before leaving. तो यहाँ उसने जब ग्रामर का चैप्टर पढ़ाया, उसको ग्रामर का लेसन पढ़ाया, तो उसको बहुत अच्छे से समझ में आया, और उसने देखा कि एम हेमिल ने भी बहुत अच्छे से पेशेंटली एक्सप्लेन करा था लेसन, और उसको बहुत अच्छा लगा। और वो देख रहा था कि हमारा जो टीचर है वो कोशिश कर रहा है कि अब जितनी भी नॉलेज है मैं एक ही दिन में सारी दे दूं बच्चों को। After the grammar, we had a lesson in writing. That day, M. Himmel had new copies for us written in a beautiful noun hand. France, Alex, France, Alex, Alex. After grammar, they had a lesson in writing. Grammar के बाद उनका writing lesson हुआ, और M. Himmel ने उनको class की new notebooks दी जिस पे लिखा था France, Alex, beautifully written on there. They looked like little flags floating everywhere in the schoolroom, hung from the rod at the top of our desk. You ought to have seen how everyone set to work and how quiet it was. The only sound was the scratching of the pen over the paper. Now, here Franz felt that here was an air of patriotism in the class. भक्ति जाग गई थी फ्रांस के लोगों में. The notebooks were like flags of France that were floating all around. The entire class was busy writing, and the only sound they could hear was that of the pen writing on the paper. हर तरफ उनको फ्रांस के झंडे दिखाई दे रहे थे जो फ्लोट कर रहे थे, और कोई साउंड नहीं और सुनाई दे रही थी, सिर्फ एक, जब आप लिखते हो पेपर पे पेन से तो उसकी साउंड सुनाई दे रही थी, सिर्फ पेपर और पेन की. Once some beetle flew in, but nobody paid any attention to them. Not even the little ones, who worked right on pressing their fish hooks as if that was a French too. Here, beetles means a large size insect, like housefly and mosquito and all. Not even the little ones here means refer to the pigeons, who worked right on pressing the fish hooks means scratching with their claws. Now here he explained, once some mosquitoes flew into the class. एक बार कुछ mosquitoes आए क्लास के अंदर, but no one panicked as everyone was busy in writing. तो सब लिखने में busy थे, इसलिए लोगों का बच्चों का ध्यान नहीं गया उस पे. The writer considered the pigeons sitting on the roof of the class to the student as well, and say that even the pigeons were busy scratching the roof with their claws, and it seemed that they were also busy writing the task of French language. तो उन्होंने यहाँ कंपेयर किया पिजन्स को, पक्षियों को जो रूफ पर बैठे थे दीवार पे और स्क्रैच कर रहे थे रूफ को अपने पंजों से, तो उन्हें लग रहा था कि ये भी कुछ लिख रहे हैं फ्रेंच लैंग्वेज में. On the roof the pigeon cooked very low, and I thought to myself, will they make them sing in German, even the pigeons? Coot means the sound जो गुटरगू pigeon sound करते हैं, उस sound से लिया गया. The coo sound of the pigeon could be heard in the class. उनकी sound सुनी जा रही थी. And Franz wondered that would the Persian force the pigeon also to change their language to go in German? अब उसे सोच में वो पड़ गया कि क्या पर्शियन भी इनको पिजन्स को भी बोलेंगे कि अब जो आप अपनी साउंड निकाल रहे हो वो जर्मन में निकालना लैंग्वेज में. The writer wants to say that the language comes naturally to be being, and it cannot be forced upon anyone, be it the pigeons or the Frenchmen. ये जो लोग हैं उन्होंने कंपेयर किया इसमें पिजन्स और फ्रेंचमैन के बीच में कि ये लैंग्वेज नेचुरली हमारे अंदर से आती है, आप किसी को फोर्स नहीं कर सकते कि अपनी लैंग्वेज में सीखने के लिए, बोलने के लिए. When I looked up from my writing, I saw M. Hamel sitting motionless in his chair and gazing first at one time, then at another, as if he wanted to fix in his mind just how everything looked in that little schoolroom. Now, here, gazing means looking intently, and fix in his mind means to or keep forever. In between writing, Franz looked at M. Himmel, who sat still and stared at different things in the classroom in succession, as if he wanted to memorize the appearance of everything before leaving. तो उसने देखा कि एम हेमल जो है चेयर पे बैठे हैं आराम से और पूरे रूम का को देख रहे हैं जैसे वो आंखों में बसाना चाहते हैं हर चीज को बिफोर लिविंग फ्रॉम देयर वहां से जाने से पहले हर चीज को क्योंकि उन्हें 40 years हो गए थे तो बहुत अटैच हो गए थे हर चीज से fancy for 40 years he had been there in the same place with his garden outside the window and his class in front of him just like that only the desks and benches had been worn smooth. The walnut trees in the garden were taller, and the hopvine that he had planted himself twined about the window to the road roof. Now here one smooth means had worn out and become smooth due to the overuse. जब आप किसी चीज को बार बार यूज करते हो तो वो थोड़ी सी स्मूथ हो जाती है तो जो शुरू में जो बेंचेस थे जो चेयर्स थी वो थोड़ी रफ एंड टफ थी अब उनको बार बार यूज करने से क्या हो गई वो स्मूथ हो गई एंड हेयर ट्विन मील्स ट्विस्टेड. Now, M. Hamill had been teaching at the same place for 40 years. 40 साल से पढ़ा रहे थे वहीं same school में. The only changes were that the desk in the classroom had worn out due to the use over the years. अब 40 साल से desk वही use किए जा रहे हैं तो वो थोड़े से smooth हो गए थे. जैसे कि the walnut trees in the garden outside had grown taller. जो walnut tree था वो बड़ा हो गया था. And hopvine on the outer wall of the school building had climbed up the road. और सब चीजें थोड़ी सी चेंज हो गई थी. How it must have broken his heart to leave it all, poor man, to hear his sister moving about in the room about packing their trunks, for they must leave for the country next day. Now here Franz felt that the teacher must be heartbroken to be sent away from the place where he had spent 40 years of his life. The noises of his sister packing and moving their luggage could be heard from the room upstairs as they had to leave the next day. तो बहुत मुश्किल होता है 40 साल से आप एक जगह काम कर रहे हो और ये बहुत हार्ट ब्रोकिंग थिंग है कि आपको छोड़ के एकदम जाना पड़ता है और साथ ही के साथ उसको कुछ नॉइजेस भी सुनाई दिए जो उसकी एम हेमल की सिस्टर पैकिंग कर रही थी लगेज की और वो काफी क्योंकि उन्होंने नेक्स्ट डे वहां से जाना था तो अपस्टेयर से काफी साउंड्स भी आ रही थी लगेज पैकिंग की एंड मूविंग की but he had the courage to hear every lesson to the very past. After the writing, we had a lesson in history, then the babies chanted their ba, bi, by, bo. M. Hamel remained composed and heard the lesson from the entire class. After the writing task, there was a lesson of history, history का lesson हुआ, followed by phonic sounds, where they recited the sound of alphabet. And Franz referred to the class as babies because although they were grown up, तो उसको काफी जैसे बच्चे फोनिंग साउंड्स निकालते थे फॉर एप्पल एंड ऑल तो वहां पे रिसाइट करने की फोनिंग साउंड की काफी ऐसी साउंड्स आ रही थी कि बच्चे बहुत छोटे हैं द यंगर चिल्ड्रन they are usually done by the younger children so he called himself as his class to the babies तो उसने अपने आप को रेफर करा बेबीज से. Down there at the back of the room, old Hauser had put up his spectacle and holding his Palmer in both hands, spelled the letters with them. You could see that he too was crying. His voice trembled with emotion, and it was so funny to hear him that we all wanted to laugh and cry. Ah, how well I remember it at the last lesson. Now here Hauser had put on his spectacle चश्मे उन्होंने पहने and holding the primer जिस पे notice order आया हुआ था and he was holding the primer in both in his hand and reciting the letters in the with the class. रो रहे थे अंदर से his voice was trembled as he spoke. लड़खड़ा रही थी उनकी वॉइस जब वो बोल रहे थे। फ्रांस हैड मिक्स फीलिंग, उसकी हैप्पी भी था, फनी भी था। तो उसके पास फ्रांस हैड मिक्स फीलिंग्स। ही फाउंड इट फनी टू सी हाउ एन ओल्ड मैन लाइक हॉजर वाज क्राइंग। तो उसे बहुत फनी लग रहा था कि इतना बूढ़ा आदमी रो रहा है, ट्रेवलिंग कर रहा है। ऑन द अदर हैंड ही ऑल्सो फेल्ट इमोशनल लाइक हॉजर डिड, और दूसरी तरफ वो खुद भी इमोशनल था। फ्रांस कुड नॉट नेवर फॉरगेट हिज लास्ट लेसन। तो नहीं, लास्ट लेसन को भी सोचने में मजबूर था, भी याद रखने के लिए मजबूर था। तो उसको बहुत अजीब लग रहा था कि वो रोए या हंसे, मिक्स फीलिंग थी उसके पास। ऑल एट वंस द चर्च क्लॉक स्ट्रक 12, देन द एंगलस। एंगलस हियर मींस प्रेयर सॉन्ग इन चर्च, जो प्रेयर गाई जाती है चर्च के अंदर। एंड द स्टार्ट इज मार्क्ड बाय द रिंगिंग ऑफ द बेल। जब स्टार्ट होती है तो रिंग करते हैं बेल को। Just then the clock at the church struck 12 and the prayer song began. At the same moment the trumpet of Persian returning from drill, जब वो एक्सरसाइज करके वापस आ रहे थे तो ट्रम्पेट एक इंस्ट्रूमेंट है, वो बजाया गया, बिगुल, sounded under our windows. M. Hamel stood up very pale in his chair. I never saw him look so tall. Trumpet here means a musical instrument. Pale means used to describe a person's face or skin if it has less color than usual. जब आपकी स्किन एकदम चेंज हो जाती है with any emotion or stress, तो उसके लिए बोला गया यहाँ पे उसकी स्किन बहुत पेल येलो हो गई थी, जो एक्चुअल उसका कलर था स्किन का उससे चेंज हो गई थी। At the same moment, the sound of the trumpet played by the Persian soldier who were returning from the drill was heard. M. Hammel's face became dull and colorless as the time had come for the class to get over. He stood straight and motionless, and France says that he had never appeared to be so tall. तो चुपचाप खड़े थे, मोशनलेस थे, कोई मोशन नहीं था उनमें, चुपचाप खड़े थे। और फ्रांस ने पहली बार देखा कि वो इतने टॉल हैं, उन्हें हाइट महसूस हो रही थी उनकी। My friend said I, but something choked him. सब लड़खड़ाते हुए बोलते बोलते he could not go on, नहीं बोल पाए। Then he turned on the blackboard, took a piece of chalk, and bearing on his mind, he wrote as large as he could, Viva la France. उन्होंने कुछ लिखा बोर्ड के ऊपर। Choked here means become unable to speak due to the strong emotion. जब आपका गला भर आता है तो आप नहीं बोल पाते, तो here choke means unable to speak due to strong emotions. Now here M. Hamel began to speak but could not continue as he was overpowered by his emotion. Emotion से भरे हुए थे तो नहीं बोल पा रहे थे। He took a piece of chalk, उन्होंने लिख दिया Viva la France, इसका मीनिंग होता है long live France, on the board as large he could, जितना बड़ा वो लिख सकते थे उन्होंने लिख दिया। Then he stopped and leaned his head against the wall, and without a word he made a gesture to us with his hand, school is dismissed, you may go. Gesture here means a signal. एक सिग्नल उन्होंने दिया कि क्लास अब खत्म हो गई है। वॉल की तरफ वो बेंड हुए, मुड़े, और उन्होंने एक सिग्नल दिया कि क्लास ओवर हो गई है, अब आप स्कूल अपने घर जा सकते हैं। द क्लास, द लास्ट लेसन ऑफ द फ्रेंच लैंग्वेज इज मूव, तो आप अपने घर जा सकते हैं। तो here's the summary. Hope you like it.